Hello, and thank you for listening in to CLDF Chatter. To give you a quick overview, CLDF is a national charity which supports families whose child has a childhood liver disease. And as part of the charity, we have a family and young people service which supports those that are affected by a child who has a diagnosed liver condition up until they reach the age of 25. Today, we would like to introduce the support team and tell you all about the support and opportunities available to our listeners.
Hello everyone, I am Michelle and I'm the Head of Services at CLDF. I'd like to introduce you to Kate, our Children and Families Officer, and Louise, our Young People's Digital and Engagement Officer. Together, we are the support team at CLDF. So to give you an overview of my role first, I manage all of the support and the patient involvement in the charity. That means I get to do all the great stuff of working with families and young people, and I get to manage a lovely team of Louise and Kate, and Katie, who is our young person's worker, who is based in Belfast as well. We are able to provide support to families from the point of diagnosis until that child turns 25, and really anything that they need from us throughout their liver journey is our privilege to provide. I also work with organisations who are looking at research and creating technologies to help families with children with liver disease. So that could be medicines, or it could be things like scanning equipment or other things similar to that. And I get involved in the sort of appraisal process for those, being available on the NHS. And I get to involve parents and patients in that process to ensure that their voice is heard. So that's obviously a super important part of my role, to ensure that patients and parents have the opportunity to influence things that obviously affect them the most. So I'll hand over to Kate, who will tell you a little bit about what she does on a day-to-day basis.
Hello everyone, I'm Kate and I'm the Children and Families Officer here at CLDF. My role is to provide families with support through their liver journey, and that can be in many different shapes and sizes. I work with families from the start of their liver journey, so maybe pre-diagnosis or just post-diagnosis when everything feels really overwhelming and really scary, and right through that journey up until the child turns 25. We provide whole family support, so that's support to mum, dad, sisters, brothers, grandparents, anyone involved in that child's life. I work really closely with Louise, our Children and Young People's Digital Engagement Officer, where there are teenagers or young people in the family. I work with schools on a regular basis to help children and young people either return to school after a long period of absence, perhaps due to multiple hospital admissions or post-transplant, or just to improve relationships with schools where there's maybe been a lack of understanding about how liver disease affects a child on a day-to-day basis. And what we know about liver disease is it can sometimes be quite an invisible illness with lots of emotional and mental health factors to that. So providing education and support to schools to support the child. The rest of the support I provide really depends on what you need as a family. It can be anything from helping a family access the right benefits that they may be entitled to for caring for a child. It could be looking at holistic family support if there's difficult family dynamics due to one parent being away in hospital for an extended period of time with a child. It could be offering support with siblings. It could be liaising with your child's medical team or clinicians if that's feeling tricky or overwhelming. I spend time speaking to parents' employers to help them understand what it's like to be the parent of a child with a chronic liver condition and what they might need from their employer to help them manage that really tricky work-life balance when you have a child who's poorly with unexpected hospital admissions. That's a snapshot of what I do. But really what I do is I'm here to advocate for you as a family or as a parent or as a guardian to help you help your child. And that is, in a nutshell, what I do. So I'm going to hand over to Louise to give an overview of her role.
Hello, so I am Louise. I'm the Young People's Digital Engagement Officer at CLDF, and I support the young people who are aged between 11 and 25. We have expanded our remit and realised actually we need to support those at an earlier age to get them used to the young people service. So I am running groups now for 9 and 10-year-olds. But my role in general, I do support the young people through their journey. So from an early age up to the fact that they're going to start transition or go into university or starting work. There's lots of different topics that young people come to me for, such as they want to go and travel. Like I said, educational reasons. It could be home life. It could be the fact that their medications are a lot to handle and they want to work out ways to manage that process. And they really do enjoy coming to our sessions for conversations with other young people to see what it's like to meet others with a liver condition. As part of my role, I am running a digital aspect of the service. So we have a group on Facebook for young people to connect online, which involves a group chat. And additional to that, we hold Zoom sessions for young people to take part and meet one another online face to face, because we are based all over the UK. As part of my role, I do offer one-to-ones with young people so they can have time with myself just to get things off their chest and work on an area of a challenge that they're facing currently. But there's lots of different ways that we support young people, and it's however they feel comfortable. It's a really great service to get involved with, and we can't wait to tell you more as we go on with this podcast. Just like to acknowledge, obviously, with the team here today, that there is a lot on offer to those that are listening, and our roles do vary, and sometimes we get phone calls and we're like, I tell you what, we've not really dealt with this before, but we'll have a go at it. And that's the attitude that the team do have here. So I don't know about you guys agreeing, but I've had many phone calls with young people who say they're at university and they're calling me and it's like, oh, I've had this opportunity to go out with friends and I don't know how to deal with the fact that they want me to go out drinking. And that's now becoming a common theme. But I mean, from day one, when I first started this role, I was like, okay, like we'll deal with this topic, like we'll handle this one. And now it's become that we've got that much resource around that. It's developed over time. So I don't know, Katie, from your experience, like you've had families ring you for different scenarios and how you've managed that.
Yeah, very much the same. So every day is completely different because we're working with families and humans, and everyone is completely different and individual. And that's part of the reason I love my job. I think one of our strengths as a team is that we work really closely together. So if I come across something or a question that I'm not sure about, I've got Louise and Michelle I can turn to, and we can put our heads together. And 9 times out of 10, we can come up with something that will help. And if we can't answer that question, then we have really good relationships with our clinical colleagues that we can go to and ask those questions to and advocate for our families and young people for, which is a very, I guess, privileged position to be in, because we don't know the answer to everything, but we generally can find someone who probably will. And that's one of the parts of my role I really enjoy, is helping a family or an individual who's not sure about something or is struggling with a question and helping them find the answer. That's something I find really satisfying.
We try to keep the roles separate as well, don't we, Kate, just to divide the fact that young people get time with myself, that they can discuss something that they might not feel that they want to offload to a parent because the parent's already managing quite a lot. And obviously you can then have that conversation on a one-to-one basis with a parent as well, without ideally the young person knowing what's been discussed from the parent's point of view. But it's nice as a team that we'll all chip in and work together, won't we? Because sometimes I've took calls from parents, Michelle's took calls from young people, but we'll always find the correct avenue for that person and who they feel comfortable with.
Definitely. And I think being able to do that is really helpful for most of the families that we work with. So exactly like Louise just said, I might take a call from a parent who might have, for example, 3 children. One of them has a liver disease, so I can do some work there around perhaps their school or hospital appointments, or work with play therapy or psychology to get the right support in place there, offer some emotional well-being support to the parent, and then call Louise and say, this young person has a sibling who's struggling, could they do some work with you? Then Louise is able to do an individual piece of work with that young person as their own person. So I could be having a conversation with, for example, mom or dad, and Louise could be having a conversation with the child, and whilst we're all working together, family members getting their own support, and they kind of own that journey and that support journey, which is something I think is quite unique to our service.
Absolutely. I think from my perspective as the service lead, things have changed a lot over the last few years. One of the reasons for us having this podcast and being able to have this discussion so that parents and young people can listen in is to make sure that people continue to be aware of the services that we provide and the support that we can offer and the range of support that we can provide. But to say that we would have been present in clinics and on wards previously, and it's not that we don't want to do that, we just don't have the resources at this current time to be able to offer that. And we really, really miss that interaction with our families, often at the time that they need us the most. And we do want families to understand that support and that we're here for them in their darkest hours, but also throughout their liver journey at any point that they feel they need additional support, or they've got extra questions, or young people start to transition, as Louisa said. Just want to really make families, parents and children and young people aware that while you might not see us, we're still here, we're still available to you, because we can't at the moment go out to clinics and wards, and we're not potentially offering face-to-face opportunities. That's only due to the fact that we don't have as much money coming into the charity. And I think that's across the board, across all charities. That's the situation that we're in at the moment. But that means that we've got more dedicated time to spend with you as individual families. We've got more time to do more complex work that maybe we wouldn't have had time to do pre-pandemic, because we're not out and about as much. We are actually here coordinating different levels of support that maybe we couldn't have done previously. So actually, I feel like from my perspective, the support that we can offer has enhanced. And I can think of examples that we'll probably go on to discuss later of support that's been provided that is very complicated. There's a lot of people involved in that, and we've taken a bit of a lead on getting the right people round the table for a family in order for things to improve in terms of maybe the care for their child or the employment of a parent while they're going through a very difficult time from diagnosis, or a young person who's on the waiting list for a transplant and still trying to go to university and achieve their course, but also mindful that there will be a point where they'll have to withdraw because they will be going into hospital to have a transplant. So, you know, there's some very complicated support going on, and we're really enjoying that side to our offer. And we want all parents with a child with liver disease to know and to take advantage of that if that's something that they need.
If families do need that support and they are on the ward, some families are actually quite comfortable to have a Zoom call with us. I've had recently one with a young person who was in hospital on a bed and decided to have a one-to-one Zoom call with me. It's interesting that even though we can't travel to a hospital currently, the service is still there, but just in a different way. And we recognise that if you actually aren't comfortable with a video call, it can still be done like a telephone call. And we even have families now that just WhatsApp or text us, don't we, as well? So there's a range of ways that you can get hold of us and contact us that will work for you. So I just wanted to explain really what projects that we offer at CLDF, because I'm not sure that all listeners will know exactly what is being delivered behind the scenes. So I'll pass over to Michelle and Kate, who can tell you about the families programs that are running.
CLDF have got a sort of approach to, if we feel that there's something that's consistently coming up for parents, we'll try to create something that can help. And we're obviously very aware of the stress and anxiety having a child with a liver disease can cause. And it causes that for, I'd say, all of our parents, if not the majority of our parents, because dealing with something incredibly difficult in terms of that worry about your child's health and what that looks like for the future. And that can cause such high levels of anxiety. So Kate and I talked about, is there something that we could do to help parents manage that more effectively and cope with that better, and maybe try and get people at the start of their journey rather than sort of farther along their journey, where some of those things had almost become learned behaviors in terms of the sort of how you cope with anxiety and stress. So that kind of created a program which is around about well-being and coping skills that we have developed in partnership with psychologists at Glasgow Children's Hospital. And as we mentioned earlier, we have really good relationships with our clinical colleagues. We're not clinically trained, but we maximise our clinical colleagues' knowledge and expertise to ensure that what we say and what we provide and what we offer is appropriate, and we have all the information that's correct and current. So Kate, do you want to tell the listeners a little bit more about the wellbeing programme?
Absolutely. So the wellbeing programme is one of my passions at the moment. As Michelle said, we try and respond to the needs of the families that we support. And what became very clear to us, particularly during lockdown, was a growing need for some emotional and mental health support for parents and guardians of children with a liver disease. And across the country, we know that there's been declining rates of mental health and emotional well-being during the pandemic. And access to direct support for that is very difficult and limited across the nation again. So we thought, what can we do here? What can we do to try and help meet the needs of many of our families who describe feeling overwhelmed, anxious, suffering often from post-traumatic stress disorder, feeling overwhelmed and not really confident or able to care for their child in the way that they want to be able to, because they're struggling with their own emotional health and well-being difficulties. We wish we had a magic wand for that, and we don't. But what we did do was come up with what is a really, really lovely, accessible program, which is a mix of some cognitive behavioral therapy techniques to help manage feelings of anxiety and stress, understand why we feel anxious and stressed, which sounds really obvious, but actually the science behind it and what happens to our brains when we are feeling anxious and stressed is really, really interesting, especially when it's long-term chronic stress, which has a physiological effect on our bodies as well. So understanding why we feel the way we do, an opportunity for families to come together and share their journey is very, very helpful and supportive. Like Louise mentioned earlier, there's no pressure to do that. There's no pressure to have your camera off. You can have your camera on or off. You can share your story or not. There's no pressure. It's very much what works for you and what you want to get out of the program. And the feedback's been really, really great. Families have found it extremely reassuring and comforting to know there's other families out there who have gone through maybe not their exact same journey, but something similar. Learn some techniques for managing that stress and anxiety so that they can be more able, more relaxed, and more prepared to deal with stressful situations as they crop up with their child's liver journey, and also learn some techniques that they can then share with their child. So as part of the wellbeing programme, we've developed an anxiety resource for children, which has landed really well with our children and families. So that's set to continue. We're exploring different digital options for that so it can reach as many families as possible, but very much keeping at the heart of it the chance for families to connect as a group virtually and digitally, so that it reduces that sense of isolation that can often happen when you are parenting a child who has a rare condition. So it's something that we're really proud of, and we're continuing to work on and tailor it to what you guys say you want to have and hear about from us.
Yeah, we've run the programme a couple of times now, and as Kate's saying, we're looking at other options because we appreciate that running something of an evening can be sort of something that parents maybe can't all get involved in depending on their commitments. But obviously running it during the day would prevent lots of working parents from being able to participate. But what we did see in the last programme was seeing themselves reflected in others was incredibly powerful and uplifting for families and for parents, particularly when they heard what another parent had been through and how similar it was to their experience. That made a huge difference. And that's kind of part of the wellbeing programme, is not only to look at coping with anxiety and stress and how to manage that in a positive and more effective way, but again, it's that peer support, it's that I'm not alone. For us as CLDF, we don't consider liver disease to be rare because it's what we do all day, every day. It's what we do. Our job is all about liver disease in children, but it is incredibly rare. So it's very unlikely that a parent is ever going to meet another parent unless it's in a clinical setting or it's something that CLDF have facilitated. They may meet at things like transplant games and lovely opportunities like that, but that obviously won't be for all families because not all children will have had a transplant. So to actually offer that opportunity and to witness that was particularly powerful for us. And that's what we want to continue to facilitate, is that opportunity for parents to talk to each other about their experiences, know that everybody's experience is going to be different, even if their child's got exactly the same condition clinically, their journey will be completely different. But the power in peer-to-peer discussions, just something really amazing for us to witness and something that we want to ensure that families have access to that. So I think that's a really important part of the programs that we do provide, that we are enabling parents to have that time. And it does make a huge difference, I think. Louise, do you want to give a bit of an overview of our digital work that we do within the young person service?
Yeah, of course. So the young people's digital offer at the moment as it stands is quite responsive. So if we find that there's a gap in the service or a need that needs to be met, then we have responded to a lot of feedback recently. Basically, our digital offer at the moment is between Zoom, Hangouts, podcasts and webinars, and a platform where young people can connect online, which is private through Facebook. So just exploring Zoom, we tend to meet the young people on Zoom and it's always monitored with a member of staff. The ages are broken down into appropriate groups. So we have one that's for 9 and 10-year-olds, and that's once a month on the last Tuesday of the month, starting after school at 4:15 for an hour. Then we have a second group, which is for 11 to 13. And that group is the last Thursday of the month, starting at 7:00 in the evening. And usually that session lasts for 2 hours. So we give them a lot more time because we do some fun activities during that session. They're very fond of our digital quizzes that we have, and they're very interactive, so everybody can play via their mobile phones. So we are very techy, which is great. And then as part of that evening as well, we have a split session. So we have another group running in another private room, and that's for 14 to 17-year-olds currently. And again, they'll have activities planned for them. And we find with the older group, they do tend to have more time to want to chat with one another. That's their main focus. Whereas the younger ones, they do enjoy the activities and team building group activities as well. Those who are 18 are busy lifestyles, they're working, they're studying, they're enjoying the fact they're getting their independence. So we've looked at this and we have an offer for those young people that basically we would do Zoom sessions for them, but on a less frequent basis. So it's more that they will be quarterly throughout the year. So it's more the fact that this community of young people have obviously either been with CLDF a while, so they have a community of friends now, or even if they're new to the service, these Zoom sessions will offer these young people can reunite with one another. But the community is so big within this age group because we've got those that have stuck with the charity for a long period of time, that these quarterly Zoom sessions will be themed in the sense that, yes, they'll only be 2 hours long, but in those 2 hours, they will get a chance to catch up with one another and obviously take part in something that would contribute necessarily to CLDF from their perspective. So it's great that this cohort of young people do tend to want to give back to the charity. They're the ones that will say, oh, actually, I want to share my story, or can you do an article on me? Can you do a podcast? So it's really nice that when we have these quarterly meetings, they have a chance to talk to one another, but we can also get stuck in and things that they want to share with the charity about their journeys, because they're at that point in life where they're like, actually, I want to reflect back on where I've come. So it's a nice opportunity, those quarterly Zoom meetings, that they get that chance to share what their journey's been like in the last couple of months, and we can follow up with that throughout the year. So that's what we offer for that age group. There is the opportunity as well for the young people, which we can discuss externally from this podcast, is that we do encourage young people of 18 and over to come forward and they can help progress the young people's service by being a volunteer. if you would like to do that and you've got a young person that you think, oh, actually, they'd be interested in that, then we just ask them to get in touch, which the contact details will be shared at the end of the podcast. So please keep listening in. And they're all monitored by a member of staff being online. And once a young person has taken part, they do tend to see how fun and enjoyable the sessions are. And it takes just a few sessions really for them to build their confidence and meet other young people and start to gain a friendship. We've had young people attend these sessions and they've swapped numbers so they can talk to each other when the sessions aren't running throughout the month. And we've had young people whose families have set up meetups in the summer holidays so that the young people can meet one another, because that's one of the challenges that young people face, obviously, is the distance that they're all placed around the UK. And that's why we try and hold these Zoom sessions to connect people and obviously make those young people realise they're not alone. So that's our Zoom sessions in a nutshell, but they are great fun and I would recommend anybody to give it a try, and they can attend them obviously with their cameras off as well, especially for the younger ones who are 9 to 10. If you feel that your child, for instance, would need a little bit of support, we encourage parents to sit aside, not necessarily on the camera view, but at least you can be in the same room that your child's obviously interacting on Zoom. And if they need help or they're struggling with an answer to a question, in most times with the quizzes, I've seen them all sneakily ask their parent what the answer is. So it's always an engaging session for them all. As part of our offer, we also have podcasts, which obviously we are recording today. And again, this is a comfortable experience where young people can share their story. So I've been interviewing young people who have come forward and they volunteered to share their story about a topic they're very passionate about. And as you can see on our CLDF Chatter site, there are multiple stories sharing young people's journeys through university, receiving a transplant, biopsies, holidays. So yeah, we've had a lot of young people share different elements of their life and journey, which is great for other young people to listen to and parents to listen to as well. So that is another offer that we currently have, and we're always welcoming, new people to share their stories. So whether that be a parent, a member of the family, or the young person themselves, quite happy to interview them. They can have an interview with any of the team, whoever they feel comfortable with. So we are more than welcome to go through that process and interview any other young person or family that would wish to tell their story to help others. As part of the Young People Service, we are developing webinars. So we currently have one out there at the moment, which is based on post-18 opportunities. And again, it's the team going through all opportunities available to a young person when they are coming to the end of their education. So they can choose to go through which the webinar covers in terms of university or employment or apprenticeship. So that's quite informal conversation that happens on that webinar where we can support a young person to make the right decision and next steps for them. As again, like I said, our roles are very varied and I've looked at many young people's CVs and helped them get into job interviews. So that's another opportunity there for young people to get involved in. And we have many other webinars coming forward, like Staying Connected, which will cover, how important it is to meet peers and look after your emotional well-being. We've got some more webinars coming about holidays and travel. So it's all informal information that will be broadcasted through audio rather than through a booklet that we also offer, obviously, our literature. That is our digital offer for the Young People's Service currently. And like I've mentioned before, once a young person reaches the age of 13, if you are comfortable with them and if they obviously have Facebook, they can join our private group, which is managed by CLDF. We have Hive ambassadors on there also checking the content that's on there. And that's a space where we have a messenger group full of young people. I think our Hive Plus one, which is for those aged 16 and over currently, has about 94 members in that chat group. So it's quite a popular chat group, and it's just a space where they can dip in and out of support. If they have a question, they can pop it on there and one of the young people will answer, but it's always monitored by a member of staff. So that's quite helpful. But it just means that they're always connected to a community. They'll never lose track of it. If they need it, they can just pop online and put whatever they want to chat into there. But it has connected a lot of young people. And a very recent example of that chat group support was we had a young person actually have a transplant during COVID in adult services. And that chat group was great because all the way through the process of receiving that transplant, young people were saying, we're behind you with this. We'll be here for you when you wake up after surgery. And that was one of the best things as a team we witnessed on that chat group, because it really opened our eyes to what digital support can offer to these young people. And that young person in particular, being an adult, it was a very difficult time when the pandemic hit, because their parents couldn't be present with them. So having that chat group just meant they felt that all their friends, their community that they've built through the CLDF, could understand what they were going through for those that have already had transplants, and support that young person through their recovery. So I would highly recommend getting involved in the Young People Service from an early age as possible, because they start to build friends that they can maintain them for life. And we've got many positive stories of young people meeting one another. We especially have 2 young girls that regularly have catch-ups and meetups when they've got time off education, and they just make the effort. And I think that's one of the biggest things, is just getting your young person to realise actually in later life, when they've got their little independence, that they can catch a train and see these young people and have a meet up halfway through the country. So it's very much a great community to get involved in. So that is our Young People Service in a nutshell.
I think what we offer, if I do say so myself, it's pretty cool. Just to make it clear that we don't necessarily expect young people to engage all day, every day. There's no expectation on that young person. It's based on where they are in their journey. If you're a parent listening to this podcast, you think, well, my young person or my child isn't quite ready for that, or they really are, but, I don't know how much their attention span is, that they're not maybe going to go to more than one Zoom hangout, and that doesn't matter. I think that's the thing that we need to be really clear about. We are here for children and young people when they want to access our service. So if they come on to a hangout in March, they might not then come into another hangout until May, and that's absolutely fine. We might have a young person that we've supported when they were 10, and then when they're 20, they decide actually to re-engage with CLDF and have a conversation with us. A couple of really amazing podcasts that we've had from a young man that's recently engaged. He hadn't engaged with the charity for quite a long time, but was just really inspired to provide us with some information via his podcast about his journey and what he'd gone through and what his recent experiences had been. But he hadn't necessarily been involved in our Hive Facebook group, or he hadn't been coming to maybe a residential before the pandemic, but he knew that CLDF were there for him when he was ready to come back and have a conversation or get some support. So just want to make it really clear that we're here for families and for young people and for parents when they need us. There's no expectation that if we don't hear from you for a year that you can't come back. Our offer is from the point where a child is diagnosed until they turn 25. So you can use the service every sort of 6 months, or you can use it every 6 years, just what works best for you as a family. But we're a shoulder, we're a sounding board, we're a support, whenever you need us. We've got open arms as to when you feel that support might happen. If we reflect on things like education and stuff, Kate, families will often come to us at those milestone points. So when their child goes to nursery, or their child starts primary school, or their child starts secondary school, for that a little bit of extra support, we're happy to provide that. But they might then not need us again for another sort of, couple of years, depending on what that family are facing.
100%. I would say for the majority of our families, it's a real dip in, dip out service, because life is a roller coaster. You'll have times where things are plain sailing and you don't need any support, and that's great. And then you'll hit a blip in the road for whatever reason, a health reason or an issue with education, a financial problem, just feeling a bit wobbly and you're not sure why, and we're still here. And I think that's one of the reasons I really enjoy being part of this team, because we're not time limited. We're 25 years time limited, but it's not like you get 6 sessions and that's it done, because we understand that this is a lifelong condition and road, and we're here for you in the good times. And some of you are kind enough to share your milestone pictures with us via a newsletter that goes out, a bulletin letter every couple of weeks, and we get lovely pictures and updates on what you're doing when things are good. And then we're here for you when things are not so good and not so easy. And that's when we can step in and respond and see what we can do to make things a bit easier. So as Michelle says, we're the constant, and we respond to what you need when you need it. And it makes for long-lasting relationships where we have the privilege of seeing you and your children grow up. And there'll be times when you need us lots, and there'll be times when you don't need us at all. And they're both great because we're just here to respond to what you need.
We're just going to explain to you all our information that we provide to families, which is via hard copy, and it's also uploaded online.
We appreciate that a lot of the stuff we do is digital and means you've got to have access to the internet and technology, but we do a lot of leaflets and information that you can actually sort of touch and hold. And I'm a big advocate for having something physical in my hand that I can look at during key periods of your life. When you sign up to CLDF, if you're a newly diagnosed family, we'll always send you out a range of different pieces of literature that will really help. So things like our Introduction to Liver Disease leaflet, which tells you all about what the liver does and gives you examples of different types of tests that are carried out on the liver and what do normal numbers look like, what do numbers look like when the liver may be struggling a little bit or be inflamed, so that you've got a little bit more understanding of the things that will be important to you throughout your child's liver journey. So you are armed with more knowledge and understanding, because ultimately you will want to understand what that looks like and be able to talk to your clinical team about those results. We have different leaflets on different conditions. So there are quite a lot of liver diseases that people might not be aware of, but obviously your child's liver diseases would probably have a leaflet about that. So biliary atresia or Alagille syndrome or PFIC or alpha-1. And these are very, very rare conditions. I mean, if I reflect on an experience that I had when I went to clinic once down in London at King's College Hospital, I was talking to a family and they said, well, you won't know about our conditions because it's so rare. And I said, but we are the Children's Liver Disease Foundation, so that's what we understand. We understand about rare childhood liver disease. And she said, oh, it's alpha-1. And I could produce a leaflet from my bag, as if by magic. And it completely changed the conversation and the light that came on in Mum's eyes, because actually she wasn't speaking to someone that didn't know what this was. She was speaking to someone that did, and speaking to someone that could provide her with some high quality, understandable information on that condition. And she kind of held on to that leaflet like it was made of gold. So it's really important that our families are represented in the literature that we provide. We've also got leaflets that help to support. So it's not just about the clinical information, it's about how to support your child with liver disease or how to support your young person with liver disease. And that gives you some really helpful hints and tips on what to do throughout your liver journey and how to cope with the stress and the anxiety of having a child with a complex and chronic or acute liver condition. And I think that really helps, because that's not only coming from us and coming from clinical colleagues, but it's coming from other parents and their experiences and the things that have worked best for them. We also provide more bespoke information about certain things, such as our education pack. And I'm really, really proud of our education pack. It used to be a 4-page leaflet that we sent out to parents, and now we've got, I think it's about 40 pages of information, and we've got one that's dedicated to each country in the UK. So we've got a Scotland pack, an England pack, a Wales pack, and a Northern Ireland pack. And these were a huge labour of love for us as a charity to ensure that we put as much supporting information in there, not only about liver disease and the impact that that has on a child, but to give the schools, nurseries, the primary school, secondary school, that understanding of what it's like and what they need to do to care for a child with a chronic liver disease, and what that can mean in terms of that child's ability to attend school and perform in school. We believe that our young people can achieve anything. They have the potential to achieve all of their goals. So we want the school to support them with that and ensure that things are put in place within the school environment that really make them feel comfortable, enhance their experience, and acknowledge that they will go through a different journey, but that journey is just as important as other children who, don't necessarily have any health conditions. The education pack is really key to that.
It can be a really good kind of starting jump boards to have more in-depth conversations with the school, and whether that's at the very start of your child's education at nursery or right the way up to the end. It contains, as Michelle said, lots of information for the school to understand the impact of liver disease on a child with their education, what they can do to help. It's very, very detailed and comprehensive. And in many cases, that's sufficient for a school to say, okay, great, we can run with this. We feel comfortable with this. And sometimes the school will say, okay, I'm not too sure about these parts, or what else can we do here? Can we have a further conversation? And that's something that where I do a lot of, which is through Zooms or through phone calls, either with a parent and child, or advocating on their behalf, if that's their preference, with schools to explain what that child might need to make their educational experience as best it can be and as comfortable as it can be with some of the challenges that child might face. So it's great on its own, the pack, and it's also great as a tool, I suppose, for starting a more detailed conversation with a school.
The offer that we have is that we can create literature that is going to help at key milestones in a child's life, and we can create stuff that's tailored to either a parent or a child or a young person in particular. So there's some really good resources for young people. We've got some really good booklets that help young people to kind of navigate their sort of understanding and their journey sort of post-16. The young person's guide sort of talks about things that are for older young people, gives them a bit more understanding of things that they need to think about as they get older, past their transition point, as they move into sort of being a young adult. And that's things that we'll send out to parents and to young people at an appropriate time, when young people start to ask some key questions about how they can do certain things. Will that impact on their health?
Our young people's guide, it's really helpful when a young person reaches that transition age, where they're at university and they're starting to find out who they are as a person. So the guide itself, I've had many young people have a copy of it or look back at it, especially when they're considering choices. Like I said, travel, it could be about getting more information about tattoos. What's the risks of that? And some of these young people learn a lot from this guide, because it might just stem into their head because, a friend said, oh, I'm going out for the night, I'm going to have a drink, or I'm going to have a tattoo or a piercing. And that young person comes to me and goes, oh, I'm having a piercing. And I'll be like, oh, okay. So have you read our young person's guide? And they'll be like, oh, no, actually, yeah, can I have a copy of that? And as soon as they've picked up that guide, had a little read, it just educates them that little bit more to make that decision a little bit more wisely, because that guide goes through all the thorough information. Are they using the correct sanitization to, go through with this procedure, so you're not going to catch an infection? Are they registered? That young person finds a lot of information that they maybe didn't consider before they jumped to that conclusion that that's what they're going to go ahead with. So it's always wise that a young person has a copy of that book when they reach that age that we feel is appropriate to distribute that to them. So if a young person is out there thinking, actually, yeah, I'd like a copy of that to have a little look at all the life choices that I will make when I am turning into a young adult, then we can send that out to them. And we also have another young people's resource, which, again, another booklet, but it shares experiences with young people. It's got a little bit of advice in there from young people, their stories. So that's a nice little book if you're feeling like, oh, you're the only one out there, because they've actually got their photos in there, so you can see these young people and hear all about their stories. And again, we have a pack for young people when they join the young people service. They're not aware of everything that's going on, but again, that's got leaflets in there about the Hive platform, about the sessions that are going on, QR codes now, so you can scan them easily and takes you straight to them. It's all very much accessible information now, and we've tried to make it as clear as possible so you can find us. And we continue to develop information. So we've had some feedback from young people about what a gap is or what their biggest challenge is. And currently we're finding that's at university. So we are going to be focusing on some more resources for young people and more information that we can tailor to their needs. So this information, like we said, is all accessible online as well, isn't it, on
Yeah.
the website? So there are copies on there. But again, like I said, if you want a hard copy and you need that, then please do get in touch. But a lot of the young people, once they read the literature and they don't feel comfortable discussing it in a medical setting, have built a positive relationship with CLDF, that they'll have a conversation with a member of staff here. And we have very close links with the hospital staff of the 3 main hospitals within the UK. And we've had times where we've communicated and advocated for a young person on their behalf to a member of staff, which could be a youth worker in the department for the hospital, or it could be a clinical nurse. And we've asked, would they actually reach out to this person and have that conversation, because that's the person that they feel most comfortable to have that discussion with. So there are ways around things that if you just explore and seek the support, we will try our best to help in those situations.
So I think it might be really useful to parents and young people, whoever's listening, if we share some examples of what we have done to support families and young people. I think it's great listening to us and we're telling you all this great stuff, and, you know, we would do that, wouldn't we? But I think if Kate and Louise could maybe share an example of the kind of support that they've provided to a family and how that kind of started, where that came from, how we met that family. So whether that was through a referral or whether they contacted us, what they actually sort of did to help that family or that young person, and sort of what the outcome of that was. Because I think hearing it in reality, hearing about the experience kind of gives you a little bit more insight. You may think, oh, you couldn't possibly help me with my situation because that's not what you do. So we could sort of give you a little bit of information about some of the things that we have done, and maybe that would make you feel a little bit more encouraged to speak to CLDF about your situation. We know, don't get me wrong, we genuinely know how difficult it can be to pick up the phone to a complete stranger and share your sort of most intimate information about what's happening for you as a family or for a young person. That takes a lot. And we know that at the moment, when we're not actually able to see people face to face and make that initial approach ourselves, sometimes you have to be the first person to do that. And we know that that can be really, really difficult. And the reason for us doing this podcast is so that you know that we're lovely and that we'll always listen. We'll never not listen. We'll never not be there for you to share your story. If I pass on to Kate and she just maybe gives an example of some support she's done with a family recently.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are all super nice. I think I find it with every single family I speak to for the first time. And as Michelle says, that's really scary to pick up the phone and share your story when you're feeling vulnerable. That's really, really difficult to do and very brave. And I think nearly everybody I speak to starts off by saying, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I think I'm going to cry. And I'm like, yeah, of course you are. Of course you are. And that's okay. We'll take our time. We're not going anywhere. It's very hard for me to pick one example because everybody is so different. Like I said earlier, we're all humans, we're all individuals, and you will have little humans and little individuals. So everyone is very different. So I will try and give 2 short examples of slightly different areas of support that I've done with families. So one was with a family of a mum who found us. I think she'd been told about us during a clinic visit, didn't feel at that time that she could really take on exploring what that might look like and reaching out for support because she was so overwhelmed. She was doing an amazing job as a single mum to several children, a stellar job, one of whom had a liver disease and was listed for a transplant. She was really struggling with her son's education and attendance issues. We know that the whole country is under quite significant pressure, school-wise, education-wise, to keep attendance levels up. That is understandable, but when we have children with liver disease who are unable to attend school or unable to attend school on a full-time basis, that places a huge stress on the parent. So she had contacted us off her own back and then remembered laterally that she'd heard about us at a clinic. She found us through the internet, and the initial few phone calls were really to discuss where her main stresses were coming from. So what was stressing her out most at that point? And what was stressing her out was, number one, the health of her son who was waiting for a transplant, how to manage that with her other children and her time so that she didn't feel so guilty about her other children having to spend a lot of time with other family members, being sent on lots of different play dates, wraparound school care, to let her look after her son with liver disease who was more poorly. So we did quite a lot of work initially with the school to help them understand. He looked well, he didn't look unwell, which was just a challenge we come across quite a lot with schools. Although he looked well, he was fatigued very easily and had a lot of abdominal pain, and that was affecting his ability to manage at school full time. So we started to liaise between mum and school. The boy himself didn't want to get involved in those conversations, although he had the opportunity to. We always include children's views wherever they want to share them, but there's no pressure to. And we managed to build those relationships back up with the school, find a manageable plan to help him attend on a part-time basis that didn't cause him extra fatigue, supported the family through his transplant, and then going back to school, helping and supporting mum to take those difficult decisions about when he was ready to return, what that might look like, and how scary it is to see your baby, no matter whether they're 0 or whether they are 14 or whether they are 25, however old they are, to go back out into that big scary world of school after a significant operation. So we supported them through that process with the school, a little bit of financial tweaking to help them ensure they were accessing everything they were entitled to. And I'm delighted to say he's now doing absolutely amazingly well, and the family are in a much more comfortable, emotional, safe and stable place. Other end of the scale, age-wise, mum with a teenager who is neurodivergent. He has autism, which is awesome. It gives him huge strengths and gives him some challenges too around change. And he was listed for transplant and was finding that very, very difficult. All young people find that difficult for obvious reasons. You guys are the experts on this. But he was finding it particularly difficult not knowing when that transplant would be and how difficult and different it would feel in hospital, where it wasn't his safe place of his room with his gaming console, which was his way of relaxing and switching off from the world when it became overwhelming. So we did a really interesting piece of work with his mum. He didn't want to be involved with our service directly, which again we completely respected. But we supported his mum and worked, I guess, as a kind of advocacy mediator role a little bit between them and the hospital to explain why he needed certain things put in place that might seem small but made a big difference to him. So making sure that he would be able to have the same kind of blankets as he did at home, the same kind of LED lights, not right around the hospital room, because that was even above what we could manage without our magic wand, but creating some similarities between his comfort zone at home and in the hospital, doing lots of preparatory visits for the transplant when it happened. And although we couldn't give an exact date for that, as much talking and understanding about that as we could, and using some of those CBT and anxiety management techniques. Mum joined the wellbeing program, which was really positive, so she could help herself to help him, and doing some work there again around guilt over sibling support at leaving his sister, which she was finding really difficult. And that piece of work is still ongoing, but covered again, I guess, our main threads of supporting people who are neurotypical, neurodivergent. That's an area of interest at the moment that we're looking at, because I'm not sure clinical settings are always or ever particularly well suited for additional needs, and that's something that we've been doing quite a bit of work on actually, which is interesting. So what are the common themes? I guess just meeting each family as they are, where they're at, what are their main concerns at the time of referral, how did they find us, where are they at in their journey, what can we do short term immediately to make things a bit different or a bit better, and then longer term, what can we do to support that family once they're kind of out of the scary woods part and more into what happens next. I could give you minutes because there's so many families, but I can't. I will hand over to Louise for some and a support example that she's worked on.
Thank you. Yes, there are a lot. And again, with the young people service, it's one of those where the young people, if they start their journey early, they will have multiple examples of support throughout their year up until 25. So one of mine in particular, we had a young person And this example will be based on a young person not really wanting to engage to start with. So we had a young person who family thought it'd be really good for this young person to get involved with the charity. And so I actually, at the time when we could visit in clinic, did see this young person in a clinical setting, sat with them, had a conversation, left them with some information, and was like, I'll follow up with you once your appointment's finished and you're at home, more comfortable, and we'll have a chat. It's quite common with young people. So sometimes you'll phone them and they don't answer because they're busy, or they don't answer because they didn't necessarily want to partake. It was more the family trying to push them on to get that support. And this young person in particular didn't answer the call when I phoned them. So again, it was like, okay, no worries, like I'll follow up with a text. So follow up with a text message and there's no answer. So that's part of the service where it's like, okay, I get the vibe they're not ready, and we don't push that on young people. So left it a little while and again saw them once more and bumped into them and built that relationship slowly over time, because obviously they'd only seen me once before. So again, it was like a second meetup in the clinical environment, and again started the process of I'll follow up, I'll have a phone call. So again, the phone call didn't happen. And an area in their life came across where they had a challenge, and they'd obviously discussed it with the family, and the family had said, why don't you call CLDF? So that was the first response I got back from this young person after months of not hearing from them and seeing them on the odd occasion, obviously in a clinical setting. And I was quite happy to have that conversation with them, see what the challenge was, and get them linked into the young people service, knowing that they weren't necessarily comfortable with it to start with. So we did it on a very easy route in, where it was have a one-to-one with me first before you meet all the young people. We'll build that relationship together. You can see me face to face through Zoom. So they did that. And they absolutely loved it. So they loved their session with me, and they found it very informal. We could have a little laugh and a joke, and it became a occurrence that they wanted more one-to-one Zoom sessions. So that was a big win, because we were like, look, they're happy and comfortable now to have that conversation with me, and I can support them throughout their journey, which their journey has been a little while now, and I've supported them with their educational choices, their liver health, and recently getting into starting their own business. So that has been a little snapshot of their journey, but it's also expanded even more that they got the confidence to then join the hangout sessions and meet other young people, build friendships, and they attended pretty much every one. So they loved them that much. And their friendships just expanded even further, to the point where they took it upon themselves then to make their own chat group on WhatsApp and connect with the young people they were connecting through CLDF, so they could continue that conversation when we weren't running the Hive sessions. And even to this day, obviously, they're still connected with their community and are now progressing into early adulthood, and CLDF means an absolute a lot to them. So that was a massive turning point in their journey, where they gave CLDF a shot, and actually it really worked for them, and it's connected them with so many young people that they can now reach out for support with. And like I said, they're on the way making their own business, they're living independently, and that is a great win for us to hear, because it means that we've done our job and we've supported that young person throughout their transition and independence. So that's one story that's took few years of work, but we're there for them, and that just shows that we never give up, really. So we're always there, no matter at what point they need us. So that is a long-term example, but we do many short-term examples as well, where a young person will ping up on a chat and need support with their education. For instance, I've had someone recently who fell unwell, needed some support with their university, doing a full-time course, but needed it to be adapted, and was that an option? So did a lot of work with the university, advocating on their behalf, having meetings with the university to come to some conclusion or resolve of how the university could support their study while they're not feeling too good. And that also came out very positive, that the university did learn a lot from CLDF and actually did tweak the course to adapt to that young person's needs and accommodate the fact that they were very fatigued. So again, that is another positive example where we can help and support somebody who's struggling, especially when it's young people trying to make their own decisions and manage their own health. It's quite good that they can do that and reach out to myself as the young people's officer, and parents can shadow that journey. So there's some examples from the support team. And it just goes to show that we can be reached in many different ways as well. So another area we'd like to cover just before we wrap up today is how actually you can contact us. For myself, I am open to many contact methods. The list goes on. So let's just cover some of them. There is phone numbers, which we will share. There is a text service. There is a WhatsApp service. We have Facebook, whether that be on the group wall or it can be through private messenger, which is used actively. I think most of my communication is through Facebook Messenger with young people. We do have Instagram accounts. Young people and families actually can message through our general Instagram account. And we have email and Zoom. There is that many different communication methods that we try and accommodate people's comfort level with.
I think we're really comfortable with putting that onto the young person or the parent, whatever they feel most comfortable communicating with us, we're happy to accommodate. I think in years gone by, it was probably just telephone or email. But now we really value the fact that we can have one-to-one face-to-face meetings via Zoom. Makes a big difference, I think, to be able to see someone and interact with them when you can actually see them face-to-face. And while we may not be able to go to clinics and we may not be able to go to wards at the moment or have those opportunities where people were meeting physically, we weren't really doing our one-to-one support face-to-face previously anyway. And this is a really positive enhancement of our service, to see someone and to be able to connect with them when they are feeling particularly vulnerable or they need to get some stuff off their chest. You know, that's often really useful to do that when you can see that person in front of you. Telephone's fine, but sometimes you don't get that reassurance that you need from seeing a person's face, person sort of reassuring you through their body language, their smile, and give those cues that you need to kind of get a lot of stuff off your chest and feel that that person is someone that you can connect with. It's quite hard to connect with someone over the phone sometimes. So I think Zoom gives us that opportunity, but we're more than happy to chat over the phone or over email. Some people don't want to see someone. Some people don't want that face-to-face or over the phone. They just want to drop little emails every so often and get answers to their questions. I've got a couple of families that, even though I don't really do very much direct support now, but they'll often email me with a question and I'll just email them back and say, yeah, that's right. Or have you thought about this? Or do you want a little bit more extra support? And can I get Kate to give you a call? And they might just say, no, you've answered my question, and that's fine. That's great. And they won't get back in touch with me for 6 months or 2 years, whatever that looks like. So I think don't be put off by, as a parent or a young person, if you have a particular means of communication that works best for you, that we'll be able to accommodate that. And also, if you have a burning question or you want to get something out, then you can contact us outside of office hours, but just bear in mind, we won't be able to get back to you until we're back in the office. But often, if you're having a particular difficult time and it's sort of 8 o'clock at night or it's 10 o'clock at night or it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you really want to get something off your chest, or you want to just get it down on paper, if you like, through an email, then by all means send it to us or text us or put it in a WhatsApp. But just bear in mind, we won't be able to respond till we get back into the office. But we're more than happy to talk to you outside of office hours. If the best time for you to have a conversation, because you have lots of other commitments, so you're at work and then you have to put the children to bed, is 8 o'clock, then we're more than happy to accommodate that. We can move our day around and flex our time so that we can come on and have a 6:30 call, a 7:30 call. Our Zoom sessions are of an evening. So as long as we can kind of plan our day, we know that life doesn't happen between the hours of 9 and 5 or 10 and 4. Phone lines are on for our main CLDF office line. So please bear that in mind as well. We are very responsive to the needs of our parents and our young people. I think we've pretty much covered everything we wanted to cover. I just want to acknowledge the support that we can provide. I think we've given some really great examples, but we could be here all day talking about the kind of things that we've done. So please don't not contact us because you don't think we'll be able to help. Please contact us and ask us if we can. And if we can't assist, we will work out a way to signpost you to another service. We are obviously a small team. We're based across the country. We don't know a huge amount about services that are available locally. So if you live in Cornwall, for example, we might not know exactly what services are available to you locally, but we will find out. We will liaise with other organisations. We will speak to other professionals. We will find out the answers to your questions. We're pedantic and dedicated, and we want to make your journey smoother and more manageable. That's what we are here to do. So, don't hesitate. Once you're part of CLDF, you're part of CLDF. We are a family, and we believe in supporting each member of our family, and that's you guys. So please reach out to us if you haven't already. If you're thinking about, filling out our sign up form, then fill it out and we'll contact you and we'll start to support you. Louise mentioned something that always fills me with a lot of joy, is that we'll start supporting a family, maybe when their child's very little, and we'll carry on supporting that family till their child turns 25. And, we haven't been with the charity as long to see some of those evolutions, but we see pictures through our things like our Liver Life publication that we produce, sends out to everyone. And we see pictures of children maybe when they were 6 months old and they were very unwell. And then we have the privilege of supporting them when they're 21-year-olds or young adults who are going to university and are achieving amazing things. That's the beauty of the CLDF offer. Please, please, please get in touch with us if we can help you.
We'd like to give you a big thank you for listening and finding out all about CLDF. But if you would like to get in touch and start your journey of support, please do get in touch with us. We are a friendly team who are happy to help. To sign up with CLDF, if you aren't already registered, please email families@childliverdisease.org and we will email you a sign-up form. If you would like to discuss any support or challenges you are facing, please call 0121 212 6023, or alternatively you can send us an email to the family's email address just discussed, or you can text us on 07378 323 874, and we very much look forward to hearing from you, so please do get in touch if you need any advice.